You are live, Commissioner. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Sarah. Welcome, Doug. My name is Kelly Robinson, Vice Chairman of the Douglas County Board of Commissioner and Commissioner of the 2nd District. Welcome to the April 19th, 2022 Transportation Committee. As is our custom, we're just going to get right into our meeting. We've got a pretty full agenda, but this is the matter that comes before us on behalf of the people we're dealing with anything regarding infrastructure, transportation, transit, etc. It's a pretty broad subject, but we plan on tackling some tough issues that the administration may need some guidance on. So first up, I'm going to do roll call to ensure that we have established a quorum. I'll start with myself. My name is Kelly Robinson, and I am chair of this committee. Present.
Mona Jackson Jones, the vice chair of this committee, Transportation Committee.
Miguel Valentine.
Oh, I'm sorry, Miguel, go right ahead.
No, you go right ahead, Fred.
No, I will not.
All right, this is Miguel Valentine, member of the committee, present.
Frederick Perry, Deputy County Administrator, present.
That's 4. No, we're missing this.
Tiffany might be up. She's on mute.
Tiffany said her computer is kind of acting up, but she's present.
All right, fair enough. I know how I feel about this technology. That's fine. If y'all are acknowledging that she's present, that we'll establish this off the record. So we got five members of the voting membership of the Transportation Committee. Is David Good here, our support personnel?
Yes, Commissioner, I am here.
All right, our technical advisor keeps up with all things regarding our capital projects and does a good job in helping us with communication and public engagement. Thank you, David, for being here. All right, Miguel, let's go ahead and get started with our agenda. Again, we've got some other guests that may join us later that we will acknowledge. Let's go ahead and deal with the meeting minutes and get right into the agenda, please.
Yes, the meeting minutes of the March 15th, 2022 meeting were distributed. They are ready for adoption unless there's any amendments, edits from the floor.
What was the date of those meeting minutes, Director?
March 15th, 2022.
Got it. To the voting membership, is there any amendments, changes, deletion to?
No.
All right. No, if none, then we're going to allow the meeting minutes to stand as published and of record. All right, let's move forward.
Thank you. Next item, there is an item that was added to the agenda, discussion on the trails project, the Spine Road, and we have Mr. Chris Pumphrey. He's on the call. We're ready to have discussion on that item if it's the will of the committee to address it first.
As chair, I have no problem with moving the agenda item to be flexible for our visiting guests. Madam Chair, other committee members, are you guys okay? Just by acquiesce? That's okay?
Yes, we're okay. Yes.
All right. All right, so Chris Pumphrey, Executive Director of the Development Authority, welcome to the Transportation Committee today.
Thank you.
Now have the floor.
Thank you, and thank you, Chair Robinson and Chair Jackson Jones and the rest of the committee. Thank y'all for allowing me to participate this afternoon and being flexible with the agenda. As some of you know, last week we closed, we did a simultaneous close on 150 plus or minus acres for what we call the Trails mixed use development. That was to facilitate that development to move forward, where you'll have Holder Properties and Lindsay Goldberg developing a 38.5 acre movie studio, the Foxfield Company developing a commercial and mixed use kind of core of the site, property acquired by Douglas County Board of Commissioners to facilitate the furtherance of the Lee Road extension, and an additional 14 acres for future development as a part of the project. We also created a tax allocation district through the support of the commissioners and the community. We got that approved a few years ago, went through the process of creating a redevelopment plan, and then finally adopted everything for the tax allocation district, which is effective January 1 of 2022. That allows us to utilize increment or increased taxes that are generated in the district to go towards horizontal infrastructure. As a part of our component of making this mixed-use development transaction happen, there was a commitment made to deliver road infrastructure, which will be a spine road infrastructure. I think Miguel is going to show an exhibit so that everybody can see what I'm talking about. But the commitment to deliver that spine road that will serve kind of the core of the site, that will come off of Fairburn Road, come through the core of the site, and then eventually connect to the Lee Road extension. So our commitment is to deliver that spine road within 18 months of closing. So that gives us till about October or November of 2023 to have the road completed. And as you see here, you'll see this big, large green arrow, which is really representative of a trail. That'll be a multi-use trail that'll be on site, but the road is going right along that trail. So you'll see a new traffic signal that would be on Fairburn Road. There would be a median cut on Fairburn Road as well, which would then allow four-way access into the site. Well, I guess that's technically three-way access because there's nothing really connecting it on the other side of the road. But allow northbound and southbound traffic on Fairburn Road to be able to turn in and out of the trails development. So in order to facilitate that spine road, and that is a commitment on behalf of a commitment on behalf of the county, along with the development authority, to make sure that that road is delivered. And so what we need to do is then go through a process of identifying a construction manager or a project manager to help facilitate that effort for us, managing all the coordination. That's coordination with the movie studio developer, coordination with the master developer, and all of the contractors that would be brought along. They would be facilitating obtaining the permits for the traffic signal through GDOT and the median cut, the approval through GDOT, and then obviously all the other approvals that are necessary through Douglas County Transportation. So we wanted to make sure that you all were aware of that. And obviously we're going to be needing to follow the process of the county procurement in order to bring those respective entities on, because we are using TAD dollars, which are in essence public dollars, in order to make sure that this happens. So that's in essence what we wanted to approve before you all today. Miguel and I have talked through this and kind of what are some of the things that we have to take into consideration in order to make this a reality. And ensuring that we're able to meet our timelines, but also make sure that we're being good stewards of the public dollars. I'll pause there. If Miguel, there's anything else you wanted to add to that? You're muted right now.
Okay. Yeah. There's actually two components to the equation as it relates to the road. And initially, I was thinking along the lines that the road was going to be done as part of the development. But as things evolved and it became sort of a different configuration of road and multiple partners, if you will, in the development of the TAD area, and the county having assumed some responsibility for it, there is the component of the design that goes with the road. In other words, typically a development would have an on-site element, and if there's a need for a road, that would be part of the set of plans. In this case, it would be a separate set of plans, if you will, to guide the development of the details of the road. Now, there's also the need for, as Chris mentioned, the coordination between all the parties and the project management to make sure that the project can be delivered in, I guess, within the timeline that it is intended for all the entities going in. So I view this as two components that are sort of separate and distinct, unless, Chris, unless there is the potential for perhaps one of those entities to entertain adding the road to their portfolio, if you will, as part of their development to be funded as it is by the county, as it's been agreed to, but it being incorporated into one of those developments, that would be one possibility. If that's not feasible, then we would really need two different consultants, if you will, one for the design and one for the project management, which technically could be the same, but there's two different elements. The design would have to precede the other component. The most technically challenging element of this road component is the signal, because it is on a state right-of-way. Typically, the design components for signals on a state route have to be reviewed by GDOT. They certainly have to approve it. They also have to issue a permit for what would be a signal at a new location. Based on our review, I think the location ought to be suitable for a traffic signal, but all of the elements related with the GDOT approval have to precede, be addressed first in terms of the design. So again, just to clarify, there's the technical design component with all those elements, and then there's the coordination and construction management administration component as well.
Thank you for that, Director Valentin, and thank you, Executive Director Chris Rumpkin, for your lead-in. All right, so let's take a pause for a second and talk about this. And please, Miguel, to you, I'll go in reverse. There was an assumption of what the board is going to do with this. I don't think it's in our best interest to try to go back and revisit, opening this back up. Who's going to pick up this fight? No. We've got to stay focused on this. This is what we knew what we were doing. We were conscious, and so we're trying to stimulate this activity in this area. So it comes down to a function of like, well, who does the work? Well, it's about capacity. In the event that this administration cannot or does not have the capacity, you outsource. I'm going to come back to whether it's an owner's rep or a project manager. There needs to be a dedicated function that will own this, right? So this could be wrought with, and I see it very clearly, like, okay, now, a lot of moving parts. It's no different than a SPLOST. Don't make this difficult. It's somebody who's dedicated to understand, yes, there's two teams, two functions. They can run concurrently, not necessarily sequentially. You can move it along. We understand, but we need some seasoning in this. So whoever's going to write this RFQ or RFP or whatever the appropriate term, RFP, for these two functions of both design and development or construction, that needs to be duly noted. But there's still, I'm back to, but who's going to coordinate that from our side since it's two? And so I'm hearing, well, it should be them. And Chris, like, well, we're looking for help. Like, okay, so I'm sure this is me and you. So this is why that RFP, that RFQ, Tiffany, find out where we stand. Talk to our procurement officer while we're on this call and find out where we stand with that procurement, that PMO function.
Yes, I will.
This is to my very point, right? And again, it's going to get bigger and heavier. But it's about, okay, guys, time to own it. And fortify this leadership component that will own things like, okay, we got this versus kind of I don't want to pass things off. own it, and deliver it. It has value here. That's what we're here to do, is to work, to serve, not get capacity. But I don't want to, I'm not playing with this. Like, okay, well, we can go back. No, we're not going through that. Don't do that. Let's just stay focused on what we need to get done here, and get this project kicked off. There's implications here. So why would we even try to pretend like we're getting soft on our commitment to this? They need to know that we've got commitment. So let me be that voice. So I need staff to line up with that voice. That no, we made it. The board made a commitment. So it's important that staff implements the will of the board on behalf of the greater good. Make this happen. So I won't belabor this. I think you guys are just bouncing this on. So let me go to Chris. Chris, you're coming before this committee to do what? Just to give administrative concurrence to take it to the full board, that you bounce it off of us, and we want to get this in play. What is the intent? What is the ask in this meeting?
Yes, sir. So the ask here is in essence the approval or okay to proceed on identifying a construction manager. And I'm going to use that term a little loosely because we still need to firmly identify what exactly that looks like. But it is to your point, it's bringing on the professional assistance necessary to meet our 18-month timeline to deliver the spine road.
Yeah, to that point, Madam Chair, we have a contract.
Mm-hmm.
It's saying we're not negotiating amongst ourselves on what we're about to go do.
Right.
But look, you and I have both signed on the dotted line. So the point is like, okay, staff, pay attention. This ain't no what we're gonna do. Now we need to turn around and get the right team. So I think in this, Madam Chair, I'm fine with the acknowledgement that we need to go ahead and get your procurement on this. Miguel, y'all work as a team. Tiffany, Fred, get it as a team and come up with, again, it's like any other scope of a project. Like, guys, it ain't that hard. This is only a road. $5 million. We just did $160 million plus and paid off of it. Half of it was transportation. This ain't that hard. So I think we can look to maybe our peers over at Atlas and Russell. Maybe they can help shape what this ultimately becomes, because for how we need to think about this. But this shouldn't be new. And I know what you're saying, Chris. You look at somebody to own it in leadership, like Miguel, you got to be instrumental in this and helping shape what this is going to be. If it's not your area, well, let's make sure we got all the parts of the players that need to be done. I get the design, I get the construction, but also who's going to keep those two together and who's going to face with us.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We're going to own that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? This is a contract, Madam Chair. We own this. And it's just this piece, and it's not that hard. But you got some moving parts. You got different pressure points. You got different vendors up in here. And so it needs to be handled like any other thing, but this should not be difficult. So I'm going to pause there. Madam Chair, please weigh in respectfully. Is she still out there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Mhm.
Yeah, I heard you loud and clear. Really, you covered it all, Vice Chairman. We just need to move out, and I appreciate you just prompting our Assistant Accounting Administrator to follow up with our purchasing and procurement department to find out where we are. I've been asking the question as well, and we're just trying to light a fire, but I know there's some steps involved, but we're trying to expedite those steps so we can get this thing moving. I'm excited. That's all I can say. You covered it all. You said it all.
All right. So again, if those to the public, those who are former program directors and program managers, we said we got to come up with a scope of work for the assignment that we're associated with. Mm-hmm. Right. That's what we need right now. So I'm back to Memphis. We ain't got the PMO yet, but it's that's what this function comes. They will do. Like Miguel he's a subject matter expert, but you need somebody who's going to sit there and be dedicated from a project manager and own all these parts and all these other partners and align us with the schedule of all this. And so I get it. And it's a key part, but we got to fall on the sword here in the absence of that being formally in place and do what's in the right place, because we are contractually obligated. It's not like tax dollars. Maybe we'll get around to it. We'll kick the can. Well, I'm busy. Guys, this is a contract. You got 18 months and the clock is kicking right now. And every week that we delay and don't know who's going to do what, and we're passing the buck and looking around, like this is, I'm on this what's called a perfect decision-making moment. One more time like this. No, it's every now and then you got to make a perfect decision. Not kick the can. And right here, we got to make the right decision. So, Madam Chair, I'm fine with calling for a motion to calling for a motion to approve Chris Pumphrey's ask to move forward. And really, it's just authorization to move forward for both design and construction personnel associated with that, and overall program management. So I see program management, design engineer, construction manager. I mean, I'm hearing 3 functions, because even if you turn them 2 on, who's going to own that? Now, if y'all saying that Miguel's going to own it, then make sure he's clear that he owns it. And if he doesn't have the capacity, because we have no deputy, then we need to make sure we get that. But we can't pretend like everybody can't. We don't have time for this. This was huge liability for us if we don't move on this accordingly. And out the gate in this type of conversation, guys, we got to be definitive. So there's overall program management, there's design, and then there's development. Miguel, did I miss something? And I'm okay. We want to outsource the function, but I missed something.
I don't think you missed anything. I think what I wanted to make sure was clear was that there's 2 separate components, and Chris was speaking to one. I wanted to make sure that we understood the actual design is a different type, a different source, potentially a different consultant. And we can certainly move forward on procurement of design. We have on-call consultants that we can task with that component, but that is different from what Chris was speaking about. So there's those 2.
No, but that contribution I appreciate, because as he was talking in my mind as well, like, well, who's going to design this? So duly noted. I guess I've been doing this long enough to get that. Yeah, there's a design point. So to that point, Madam Chair, right, on demand. So that means we can get started on that. Go to the list, Miguel, find a firm, go down the list, find a firm, so we can get started on design. So that doesn't slow us down. We can jump right on that while you're working through this RFP process that could take, 90 days, Miguel, at best case. Time you design, put it out there, screen it, and award it, and put them ramp. That's 90 to 120 days. I don't know what it is. I'm not committed to it. But there's the natural part of this. So, but at least we can get going on that design part, Chris, within us authorizing this here. So I think we can get started, but recognize it is still a process that needs to be done. And our procurement officer should we need to make sure if she's not around, she needs to at least look at this conversation and make sure she's clear on what we're trying to do. Chris, are you okay with what you're hearing?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Very much so.
Okay. Madam Chair, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. I just heard right now we're going to move forward. We certainly will call for a motion on demand until we can do better. But I just wanted to get some clarification from Director Valentin. Do we have the capacity, or what are your thoughts in terms of just?
I think we can. We certainly, Madam Chair, have been looking for assistance over a long period of time. But I think we can move the process forward with the staff that we have. At this point, the situation is going to get, as Commissioner Robinson indicated, is going to get heavier as time goes on. So we do need to address that component, but that doesn't preclude us at this time from being able to add one project to our portfolio. It's just two separate branches, if you will, while we're looking at this other component for coordination. We would be able to proceed with the design element, and it really, all it would take, I believe, is administrative concurrence at this time to move the both processes forward, to procure the necessary expertise that we need.
Okay, thank you.
So
That's my question.
all right.
I yield back to you, Chairman.
I'm sure. So again, I'm okay with the administrative concurrence, because again, you still got to package this to come for the board. So I'm back to overall project management, on demand engineering for the design, and then a formal RFP for construction. I'm doing that for the record, but we were taking meeting minutes. And again, we never lose ownership per se, but we can't delegate. Responsibility, accountability is still ours, but you can assign people to do work. No different with the SPOS. Terry and David has done a great job. These guys are responsible for overseeing, both for ensuring the delivery and communicating it and making sure. So that, but you guys are always in the room. You get credit for being in the room. So it's the same function. This should not be any different. And I'll be. We just paid off our bond for our spots. We've run for 5 years. We've had no hiccup with all that. Half of it is transportation. So, and we haven't thought anything about it. We don't have these type of conversations. Who's going to do what and how we going to, like, okay, why is that new? We've added to the list. And it's just, and I get your point. It's coming heavy, like, okay, how am I catch all this? So I got you. That's what I'm saying. I'm relieving you. But please, I need you to be there and in this moment. So, Madam Chair, are you cool with the three things we talked about? Program oversight, on-demand engineering for design, and construction management RFP, giving you administrative concurrence.
Yes.
Staff. All right, deputies and assistant county administrators. Are y'all in this conversation? Are y'all listening? Are y'all hearing this?
Yes, sir. Right here, listening, sir. We got the 3 points that you just made. We are, I'm in concurrence with you for the overall project management, demand project engineering, as well as construction management RFP. So we're ready to move forward. Our procurement director is at a conference in Jekyll. I believe Tiffany just texted her. She'll get back with her, but she's going to go over to the department to see if they can't give us a status of where we are with this.
Yep.
But we're on board with you.
All right. So fair enough. So the last thing is that, so Chris, back to your point of timing. So we're looking for something that's immediate. I don't want to be next month and we're coming back and we're saying, okay, so where are we?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So there's the ownership part that, like, well, who's going to own even initiating this? All right. So I want to give, and what's the time frame? Because again, we come back 30 days, we've lost 30 days. We're down to 17 months. Right. And so, Deputy, I'm going to leave it up to you. I'll let you run point on that. I'm going to stay in my legislative mode. I'm just here to advise and consent. But this is something that you guys, as the executive, you should just chain of command. Executive order. This is their priority. And Chris will keep you in the loop. So I still want this a record that we all acknowledge this. So, Madam Chair, I'm going to call for at least administrative concurrence. And with that, without the motion for it, but at least go around the room and say that we all agree on the three things that we just agreed to. Are you okay with that, Madam Chair?
I'm okay with it. Yes.
All right. So I, Kelly Robinson, agree with administrative concurrence to move forward on the three functions of on-demand project management, on-demand design and engineering, project management, and as well as the RFP for construction. So that was I agree, Madam Chair.
I concur.
Miguel?
I concur.
Deputy?
I concur.
MACA?
I concur. Thank you.
We got unanimous administrative concurrence to move forward. Chris, that's all I got for you right now. You know, I didn't know this was on the agenda. We're commenting. Are you good?
Yes, sir. I'm good.
All right. We'll get back to you.
All right. Thank you all. Thank you.
Chris, I'll be in touch with you.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right.
All right, Miguel, we're back on track. Thank you for bringing that up. We moved it on. Good conversation and duly noted on your points. And again, but it forces us also to own it. So I appreciate you standing strong in that, because you're right. You and I know it's like, okay, look, guys, we got to be committed to this now. And so, Madam Chair, we just have to do what we have to do for the right reasons. So thank you, Director Valentin. Next topic.
Thank you. Next topic is we're going to veer off to transit. They have several items that they want to discuss. I believe, well, I'll toss it over to Tiffany, and then she'll take it from there.
All right, so how much time do we have related to all this transit?
The transit elements, probably about 10 minutes ought to do it.
For all of them?
What do you think, Tiffany?
Yes, Manager Roberts, 10 minutes suffice?
Yeah, we can get there pretty quick.
Okay. All right. Well, I will thank you, Miguel. Thank you, Chairman of the Committee, Vice Chairman of the Committee. So Ron Roberts, who has been helping connect Douglas in an interim role, will be providing some information that he has developed after doing a very deep dive into Connect Douglas and looking at some different priorities for the department. So Manager Roberts, I will turn it over to you.
Well, thank you, Tiffany. Good to see everybody today.
Ron, just before but I didn't know you were here. I would have acknowledged you differently as being even in the room. So duly noted for the record that we also had you, even in your interim role of being here present during this meeting. I think that was worthwhile versus you just being a guest. I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Ron. Go ahead.
Thank you, Commissioner Robinson. Can y'all see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so just real quick, this is kind of what we looked at when I came down here a couple months back, and I talked to Tiffany about this. And so the green are actually things that are underway. I remember we had a discussion with Madam Chair, and her priority was fencing. I don't know if you've had a chance, Madam Chair, to get back here, but your fencing is 99% done. And the reason that there's a urgency with these is because these are funds that were applied for in 2014, 2015. So we got a kind of a notice from FTA that we needed to use it or lose it. And so we moved forward with a variety of things. And I've kind of color coded them here. One of them being the fencing, painting, administrative offices and things of that nature. But what I wanted to bring your attention to today, and in keeping with some time limit here, is we hit some of the grants that were very timely. As you may know, we had a very, very productive meeting last week at Deer Lick with the seniors. And one of the things that came out of that discussion was the need for shelters and seating and things of that nature. So we actually had kind of identified that as a need, and we've got some funds to go ahead and get a few of these shelters. I don't want to load up on a bunch of them because I think overall what's going to be needed is we're going to need to actually kind of take, this is the third year of this program. As noted in the discussion last week, this baby's still in its infancy. So we need to look at what, again, what the citizens really going to want and what's going to make the most sense in terms of providing transit options. And that may be a study, and that may change buses. But low-hanging fruit, we have some funding to buy a few buses and bus shelters. I mean, and we can put those somewhere in the county where the greatest need is. When I say a few, I'm talking about 5 or 6. But I don't want to go ahead and purchase these without bringing them forward, because I wanted y'all to give me some idea on what kind of bus shelter. We've done a lot, Janet Sharma and I, to research, and this is kind of what we've come up with through our experiences with bus shelters and benches. And I think we've got enough funding to, like I say, buy maybe 5 or 6 of these. But these are also companies that we feel are going to be around. Part of the issue is I am having trouble getting exact amounts. Even the quotes we got a few months back are changing because of supply and demand issues. So rather than make that call myself, I wanted to bring this forward. We have the money, and I have the match in my budget to buy a couple of these. And so before we do, I'd like to know what kind of, what color, style is the most conducive, knowing that that's also going to be what we use going forward to make any changes to routes or anything else we do in the future. So I'm going to stop there and let anybody ask me some questions and see what the thought is.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. To your point, and again, acknowledging the conversation last week, the golden years, a room of basically 49 women and one gentleman, husband, and to hear their hearts and their commitment to and what public transportation means by way of mobility. But it's also recognized, yes, it's the maturity of our system, but the need to you still got to put shoes on the baby, right? You still have to make sure there's a blanket, right? That there's a cradle. And so here we are. So you've got 5 shelters. So where do you put those shelters? I'm sure you have data, and you will have data to say, well, even if we change the routes or modify it, you still have areas that are highly trafficked already that are seasoned that probably ain't going very well, not going very far. The epicenter location is one that we've always known that we needed to have one there. I think they have one there, but still, people are needing shelters, not just the benches alone. The shelters are going to be key. And it's not just that alone. Also, they talked about the routes. Like, okay, I know the bus is coming line here, but this bus stop don't tell me what route I'm on. And I'm back to, and I'm sure they're going to speak to it later. Like, okay, enough about the technology. Some things have to be natural. Some of us can still look at the stars and know the sun's over there, and that's the north. I don't need a GPS to tell me where I'm at, but some things are natural. And I'm making a point because I'm not moving from that, and I'm glad you brought this up. So, as relates to buying a couple, well, here's what's going to happen if we just throw a couple of them down. So, what is? I mean, just for the sake of coupling, I mean, either we're committed to a shelter program, or we're not. I think right now, I like to say, but where would they go and come up with a proposal to say, but where should they go? I got you guys. You got 5 on it. You got some money. Mm-hmm. You can buy a couple of them. That's not going to get us there. And I just, you don't want to fall short. We just want to put something out there for the sake of it. Just say, so the spirit is, and I know this is your first minute here. Like, no, full proposal. If you had these 4 routes, where would they go? Right. So, you have a team of individuals that y'all have been looking at this. We know it's important, and I committed to that. Like, no, we're going to do it, but let's do it right.
Right.
That with a proposal that, like, okay, based on what you know, where you have high concentration of frequency of people getting on, well, that probably is a good location. You should have the data, not you. They should be able to provide you with data. Put pressure on the vendor to say, hey guys, we need this information so we know how to position this. And so you can just come up with a map and say, here's where we go. Initially, round 1 will be this group. Round 2, I mean, lay out a plan. So not only where, but what will be the schedule for rollout, and then come up with a pricing point and let us deal with that. And again, we may still say we'll start with 5, but then at least we've got a schedule to roll this out because we've got to get there.
Right.
I'm going to finish my point as relates to Madam ACA.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Again, we recognize that we've got this 3-year pilot.
Mm-hmm.
So is this part of this broader plan? I know we need to do that. We need some route changes, perhaps some modifications. There's a couple of things that, okay, we're in this, your first report card,
Right.
the evaluation. Is this conversation part of a bigger plan, which I'm hoping you're going to say yes?
Yes, it is. So I will tell you, so today the logic was to, after our conversations with the seniors and definitely receiving their input, and then just some research that the team has done over Connect Douglas, we had already started looking at the bus shelters. So what we're doing now is we want to bring 2 options to the committee. Like Ron said, due to the lack of supply, we didn't have a ton of options due to lack of materials and things of that nature. But we do have those 2 options. The idea was to maybe start with the 5 shelters and then roll out more as we get the funding. However, we are not married to that idea, so we are definitely open to getting the routes, looking at the routes, seeing where the shelters need to go, and then maybe coming back with a full proposal to the committee of how many bus shelters we'll need, what the cost will be, and then look to the committee and the Board of Commissioners for any funding options that would be that would help us to aid us in getting this program going. But today was just to make sure that the citizens know we hear you. We heard you the other day, and we have been looking at options. These are the 2 options that we are exploring, and we want to bring that before the committee.
All right. So there's the 2 options are shelters with a bench and benches alone. What are the 2 options again?
Shelters with benches.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. They're both shelters with benches.
All right. So everything's shelters with benches.
Mm-hmm.
So to that point, so we don't have the price stabilized yet because they haven't. They're sort of fuzzy, duly noted. And then there's if you're going to buy 5, buy 50.
Mm-hmm.
That's a supply chain issue. Y'all know how I am. If you're going to go in and get what you need.
Okay.
If you find, I mean, you give me a point. In other words, give me a price point order. Like, that's what I'm saying. Do the assessment. How much do we really need? And I appreciate it, but if you got enough of just right now to do 5, and it's the same manufacturer, and you're making an order, I don't want to be like 6 months and the supply chain is even worse, and we need So if you got somebody's attention, they're gonna give you a decent price. See what that is. Versus trying to get an order for 5. But do the 5. I got it. That's what we got today. But give us options. So if this is just an introduction, great.
Yes.
I get it. You did respond. We put it on record. Thank you for making sure that we follow through. They want to see this. But I'm saying you're on point. So find a guy. If you're not comfortable, Ron, let's just keep searching. We do need to get that price stabilized. But what should it be for the whole system based on what we know today? That's all you can go with. Only know what you know today. If the routes changes, we'll deal with that later, but that'll be too new anyway. We ain't putting no bench there because ain't enough volume yet. You don't have enough data to justify even if we made those changes. But what you do know, and you should know by frequency and data. Now, Director Valentin, you want to weigh in on this?
Yes, no, I think it's going to be critical that some data analysis be made to justify the location. I think, however, if we're talking about a handful initially, there's enough data on that. If we're talking about 5 or 6, then I would say start with 1 per route and pick the location that's got the most ridership. If you have the highest ridership on that route, chances are we're not going to deviate from that anytime soon. So, but to your point, if you find them, it's a lot better to try and secure enough of them, even if you have to store them somewhere or stagger the acquisition, but be able to get what you need so that you don't have the issue later on.
And just to follow up, the grants that we agreed to with FTA, we have to expend these funds by August. So if we can go ahead with this amount under this grant and get 5 shelters, and that way we'd have them. I'm just saying, or we could do something different and roll this into something else later on. But we did make a commitment to FTA to try to expend these funds. That's why we're doing the fencing. That's why we're doing the camera updates, because the cameras are 10 years old. So I mean, we're just really trying to spend these funds before we have to give them back to FTA. And it just so happened there's about 50,000 in shelters under this grant. So I mean and the cost of, we got cost between 7,000 and 9,000. So like I said, probably about 4 or 5 shelters are all we're going to get with a 12-week lead time, which means that if we were to make a decision today, we could get them in and have them. And that way we, if we identify those needs, or as Miguel said, put them 1 on each route, or maybe just put them by the senior centers. We'd have some to be able to use, and we wouldn't have to hand the money back.
Well, Vice Chair, may I speak?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I think from the concerns of the committee, I think what I would recommend is the best route is we take this information, we go back and adjust our plan, Manager Roberts, and then bring back a full-scale plan to the committee within the time frame that we have to expend the funds.
Okay. Duly noted is just assigning the funds. We don't have to have it built by the time August rolls around. But duly noted, Manager Roberts, for bringing that point up. That, Madam Chair, we got to spend the money before it expires. Duly noted. So on that right there, that 50,000, duly noted. But then, how will we fulfill the rest of the needs? Which is the part I would like to hear. You don't have to sell it now. But then, where's the additional sourcing? So let's just say we needed 50, right? And I don't know the number, but let's say it was 50. So where would that funding come from to fill shelters, to fulfill what the senior said that we need them throughout the system?
Mm-hmm.
And so what? So I need that. You get my point.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. Madam Chair, please weigh in. Your golden years. Where you at?
Well, speaking of golden years, this money has been here since 2014 to 15, as Manager Roberts stated. And when we met and had a conversation, my directive was let's move it before we lose it. And I'm so proud of just the moving, number one, with the fence, because we have some new vehicles that need to be fenced in, and I'm proud of that. I agree with our Assistant County administrator about waiting to bring a plan about the shelters, to bring, a solid plan.
Okay.
So with that being said, I'm excited. We need to not burn the money, but it's either use it or lose it.
All right.
So,
So again, so there's not a recommendation to the full board, but this is a grant that's already been approved. You already
yes,
plan,
yes.
it's already in,
Mm-hmm.
more just administrative FYI. Madam
Yeah.
Chair, I would say, Manager Roberts, keep going. Tighten up your plan, come up with a plan. You still need to find a source for this.
Mhm.
So even if you got $50,000, right? But who's going to? How will you select this? And it may be a sole source based on the current. So y'all need to think through how will you procure this.
Mhm.
One more time, my procurement officer, I know she's trained. Good, go get certified. Do what you got to do. But when she gets back, again, we need to make sure we understand what the procurement process is going to be. And what that means, and to your point, if they're going to be around, can they scale? And to your point, so
And on the bus shelters, certainly I noticed the concrete pads. Is that an additional cost as well?
It would
Manager?
be, yes, ma'am. We don't have a lot of bus stops now just have signage, and to Commissioner Robinson's point, that's one thing that came up last week as well, is there's none of the route numbers on any of the signage too. So I mean, we're looking at doing a lot of things. We've got this is old funds that we're looking to do things with. A future grant could get 50 shelters if that's what we wanted to do. So this is just us playing catch up with this fund by the end of summer.
I just asked for one thing. We talked about this, and I just filmed it in my district dialogue that last week's experience with the conversation with the golden years will be aired. And I would encourage you to go take a look at it. But it brings up the point when we first did the roll the buses out, where we rolled them out and we didn't have any bus stops. And the spirit was, we'll just flag down the bus. Now, how you gonna flag down a bus? But that was the spirit of the administration. And it was insensitive, and they just kind of put something out there. So Manager Roberts asked, I know you're interim, but I trust that in your current capacity, that you have the right heart and mind regarding this matter, that's not acceptable, that we're just gonna throw something out there. That the seniors like, no, I will defend them all day long. It says, no, guys, it's about dignity and respect. It's not just me going through my job. I'm just doing my job. I'm just gonna throw something out here like, okay, come on, guys. So whatever you think of, even with this 5, make it count. Make it matter. Don't just be something that, okay, we just got to spend this money. We're just gonna throw something out here. Because I will never experience that again. The citizens should not have to they gotta ask for it. Like, okay, where do I get on to the bus stop? I mean, look, we're evolving. I'm like, guys, please be thoughtful about what we're doing here, that we don't send a message to our seniors or anybody who's using this. It's anybody that we really are thoughtful about this, that they're in tune. So I'm hoping that we're leveraging some practical experiences, that we just ain't gonna just throw something out to just say to check the box. It's about the dignity. It's about respect. But again, one more time, I want to make sure when I get on a transit that it works. That is something that's important. It's still the same tax dollars. So I'm sure you get the point. You know what we went through, and when they were called on it, like, oh, okay, I guess everybody all hands on deck and go out there and put poles in the ground. Like, what are y'all doing? Do you know what you're doing? Do you know what you're doing? But do we need to find experts, additional personnel to do these things? So I'm saying is, please know what you're doing when you do this, and if you need help, let us know. But please just don't throw anything out there to thinking that's unacceptable. That's just not how government should work. And you can't normalize that type of, you don't put a bus system in play and have no bus stops. And even for a director to say that, to think that was acceptable reasoning. So anyway, I'm gonna lead us along, but I'm just marking the history, knowledge of the past, move forward. But please, let's not repeat that. It sounds like just keep going. You got your marking orders.
No, Vice Chair, but I will say that in working with Manager Roberts, we've been working very hard to be very thoughtful about all of our decisions over at Connect Douglas. And we've been really weighing all of our options not to do anything rash, to make sure that we get it right. And I've said this over and over again, not just for Connect Douglas, but for my whole division. Our whole purpose is to provide exceptional constituent services, and we will do so in the coming months and coming years working with Connect Douglas. So I just wanted to make sure that the citizens are aware that that is what our goal is, and we will do so in our efforts. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Manager Roberts. Madam Chair, anything else on this topic?
I just have one question for Manager Roberts. Manager Roberts, is there an opportunity to look at some automation opportunities, maybe perhaps on the bus from when you pay the fees, or I'm just trying to make sure we capture every opportunity to make us more efficient?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Madam Chair. We have looked at and had some preliminary discussions around different types of software that our third-party operator utilizes, and we've also, and that's a bigger, deeper discussion, but it's a fascinating topic, and there is some opportunities there. We just need to be, we need to have a little bit more understanding about what we're working towards, so that we know the exact softwares to pursue, and also, a lot of it is just being able to better utilize what we already have. So, yes. and to your credit, you've identified the perfect thought process that we're pursuing as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I yield back to you, Chairman of the committee.
All right, thank you, Manager Roberts. Madam ACA, thank you for this topic. Director Valentine, there's nothing else on this. Deputy, are you okay out there? I'm not neglecting you, my bad. Are you okay?
That's fine. I will add, Vice Chair, that if those are our two options, option one has style, flair, and charm. I'd like to go with that one. Just my 2 cents.
All right, well, I'm gonna let y'all have it. I'm trusting your eyes, so it sounds good to me. All right, so we're good on that. Duly noted, you guys. Duly noted, all voices do matter. So duly noted. You got some leaning basically on that. So Director Valentine, let's keep this agenda going, because we got a long night perhaps. So let's
yes, there is one item related to transit that I'd like to bring up, just perhaps for some brief discussion, and that is the future transit study. There was some funding set aside for that effort, and typically that plays out over 15, 18 months. So it's something that we need to start considering, scheduling and getting that process going. So just wanted to mention that for discussion purposes.
Well, to that point, we did a comprehensive transportation plan, which had a broader transportation broadly, and there was a small component associated with that regarding transit. It was just sort of framing perhaps where needs were, because it's really about a needs analysis. 2.0 was supposed to be, which is what you're talking about, and clarify it's not, it's supposed to be a deeper dive. Specifically, how do we take our current infant system, as well as anything else related to transit, whether it's dial rod, whatever the case may be, what does that need to look like? We have a baseline with this current Connect Douglas, but what are the other transit needs that we may need in the county? That being said, again, we have funding. We need personnel to go execute this project, and what that needs. But if you're going to evolve Connect Douglas and you're doing the FTA evaluation, to this point, everything is not aligned. We're making decisions probably in the next 6 months to a year on a study that's going to come after that. That's the challenge about these things. Government is just slow. It's a natural course thing. Like, okay, y'all killing me with this. Good information, but it's the timing that we need to make decisions. The time that the information shows up, there's always this delay. And while it can run concurrently, it's like, okay, but we're trying to make decisions today. But and that's the point of, now we awarded that money. The board appropriated that money in the budget during this past fall in December. This is basically going on the 5th month. 5 months. Right, so it's always the lag time. It's the lag time. To your point, so what are you saying, Miguel? Well, back to, we have a PMO. RFP is out there. that we're looking for participants, bidders, vendors out there to send in their qualifications for us to be able to have on-demand for project management. It could be transportation, it could be technology, whatever their skill sets are. And out of that, we're able to obviously select somebody who could go do this. In the absence of that, one more time, it's going to take what? 90 days to start from scratch. So I'm making a point. I'm just laying out the logic that says by having these on-demand consultants that are ready to go, that we've vetted, it accelerates our capacity to be able to make decisions. But right now, we just don't have the bench. And even then, we didn't have the mechanism in place to be able to go get them in a timely manner based on the needs. So we're getting there, don't get me wrong. It's all in play. It's going to get there. But in the meantime, we're going through this indigestion, like, okay, now how are we going to do this? Right? And so we got to, I think it's necessary. Obviously, you heard the Golden Years, they want to participate. They want to be involved in these focus groups that talks about what the next 2.0 is going to be. These are people who work for LA and New York's transit system. They're like, look, we professionals. We may be seasoned. I'm sure. I mean, they were straight gangster. Like, no, we professionals, and we want to participate. Just don't send me no email. Like, no, we want to be engaged because we still got input. You know, there's other eloquence out there of people who can bring things to the table. And so, I mean, Miguel, to your point. So, what are you suggesting, Miguel? What would you like us to do in this meeting? Is there an ask you look for? Hey, we need to get started. I think so. If the board awards you $500,000, to your point, like we don't, you may not get this next year. So when we authorized, the whole point was we thought that there was a readiness for it, and it should be. So to that point, what's it be?
What I was wanting to accomplish at least today is to have the discussion, because some of the information that and the analysis that Connect Douglas staff is having to do ties in with this future endeavor. And so it is a component that is out of sequence, but ultimately, you'll have a fully fleshed out plan with all the data, but initially you may have to sort of plug out a component of that future vision to implement that. Hopefully you can have enough data to establish that it's not likely to change or conflict with what eventually will be the bigger plan. So that was my point, that is an effort that needs to begin at some point in the near future, because again, there's a lot of outreach and it's going to play out over at least 15 or 18 months.
And I don't disagree. I think we're on the same page. And so, Madam Chair, here we are. We got another RF. This would be what, Miguel? RFP? How would you handle this one, Miguel? On-demand project manager to do this thing through that vehicle, or?
This would be a qualifications based. It would be an RFQ.
Yeah. If individuals came in through the PMO RFQ that's currently out there that we're about to start rating probably at the end of this month and rank them like you did with your on-demand engineers, is that a vehicle, which means as soon as a couple of weeks or so, maybe by June, you can award it, or you're seeing something totally independent of that?
It is an area that is very detailed and very unique. So if you do get somebody that has those capabilities as part of that effort, then we could proceed with that. But it is an expertise that it's pretty detailed, and so we may have to consider a separate RFQ for it.
All right. So Deputy and Madam ACA, again, will duly noted. I think the procurement officer, Director Amons, is going to be important to this conversation. Hopefully she's got capacity over there with staff to write these. I mean, look at the work. We're just getting started. At this round, we're coming to the end, and even talking about the SPLOS, that team, they're coming to the end, but you got a whole, right, I get it. So, all right, Miguel, so to your point, let's just take that as, one more time, administratively, Madam Chair, I would encourage, wait till the procurement officer comes back, have an offline conversation on how we need to move forward on this. And then at least by our next meeting, we're moving forward with the board. In other words, by the next meeting, all this should be before the board. Where are y'all going? What do you need? And let's get it in the air. That's all we can do right now, because she's not here to help address us. Madam Chair, you got any thoughts?
I agree. That's my thoughts. I agree with you. Mm-hmm.
Director Valentine, you okay? You brought up, you okay with that?
Yes, certainly, but I think the Connect Douglas staff would need to be integral in that process. So
Who's that?
Connect Douglas staff.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. All right. So he's hinting, saying, guys, it's really y'all responsibility for this.
Right.
He's transportation.
No, Vice Chair, we understand that, and we've had some initial conversations with the Atlanta Regional, in the ATL, I'm sorry, regarding the potential of a transit study. Just getting some buy-in and some feedback. Ron Roberts has been instrumental in doing that, so we will definitely be able to move forward once we get all the information together.
So well, I appreciate the organizational destructuring, as I called it last year. I still don't think that we can be silos here, and I just want to be sensitive that, guys, y'all still all related now. Please don't like, okay, you've got to stay together, and there's a thought leadership, a technical thought leadership that we all can benefit from, and there's some learning curves that don't need to be like, okay, come on, guys. So Miguel, I'm looking for you to still stay involved in this. Yes, Madam AC and Ron, y'all gonna have to step up, get up this growth curve, but we can't just like let it like, oh, okay, well, it has to be a team. I'm sure it has to be a team. You've got deputy, y'all got to make sure this team stays together for the greater good. It's the thought leadership. I don't care if it's spread over Key and Ron and you, like, okay, it's one single thought leadership. And it should be harnessed, not isolated and siloed. So I got to make that point, because it's sort of like, okay, guys, I get the pass, but y'all can make this happen, but y'all got to talk and y'all got to operate like a real team. And so I just had to make that for the point for the record. So, Madam AC, I'm going to let you handle this, okay?
Yes, thank you, Vice Chair. And I will say that we highly value Director Valentine's infinite knowledge. And so we will definitely keep him in the loop. And we consult him regularly. So we are definitely working together as a team.
Okay. Madam Chair, you okay? I just had to put the statement on the table. You all right?
Yes, I'm okay.
All right. All right, Director Valentine, anything else on that one?
Okay, we're good on that one.
All right, keep moving.
So next item, we have the Lee Road Phase 2 construction GDOT supplemental agreement that's on the agenda. That has provided 4.4 million of additional federal and state funding that we, and I'll leave this up to you whether we need a formal recommendation to the board, being that the meeting is this evening, but it sounds like we were all in agreement that additional federal and state funds are something we want to move on as quickly as possible.
All right. So let me make sure I get this right. Again, yes, we did talk about in the work session, and we're being given this $4.4 million grant for this project that we've already funded from other sources. In other words, that gives us a, okay. So we took money from another project to put here to make sure we can get things done. We got this additional funding. Okay, so where are we going to assign this 4.4? I'd like to have that in this topic, this conversation. Where does it go? Because if the project only costs $18 million and now you got $22 million, what are we going to do with that $4 million? Where does it go? So, Miguel, any thoughts? Do you put it back? Do you extend it further up Lee Road over into over to Bomar? Do you put it over on toward District 1 in that area and keep that going? Or do you put it back where it originally came from, which is over on Thornton Road area, Factory Shoals, that economic development component of the SPLOST? What's that?
Right, and that is certainly an option as to, you could put it in any one of those components, or you could split it up and assign parts to each one. But probably the easiest thing to do at this point is to recognize two things. One is the project costs are going to continue to go up, and so we, even though there was an initial estimate of construction and a contract, those prices are going to go up, and so we'll have to have funding for that. So certainly some needs to stay or should stay assigned to the project itself, even though there isn't an allocation at this point. Beyond that, you could return the remainder to the economic development, and from there have the opportunity to assign it to other things as well.
Right. So, all right, based on, but duly noted to your point. So, like with all SPLOST projects, and David, you can weigh in. What has been our consistency when we had projects that were under budget? We didn't move the money necessarily. We left the credit, for the sake of the conversation, there until something else came up, where there was a need for it, whether we took it all or in part. So, what are your thoughts on this, Mr. Good? What has been our historical, and how would we be consistent? Leaving it there, right there in that bucket, being we got a little bit extra, and we'll use it for a project that is shovel ready, shovel worthy, and then apply it. So we don't. You're right. We don't have to force the decision today on where to assign it. But what have we been doing so far over the past 5 years, Mr. Good?
Historically, whenever a project has come in, say under budget, then if it's a large project such as the senior center or something like that, we've left the money there just in case there's some other things that's needed in a project, such as when they built the with the pool, that was something that was end up being added because so we'll have money. Then when it came to transportation projects, if a project came in under it, then we saw another project that was going to need, such as Mexican Road at Thornton. That was not a SPLOST project, but because we had those extra funds, we moved some money over there. So it all depended on what was needed during the time. And when it comes to this, I believe that you can go towards something that's more shovel ready. Since the funds are there and there are projects that's needed, go towards something that we know that's needed right now, and keep that going.
Okay. Madam Chair, any thoughts? I'm okay with leaving it as is, to Mr. Good's point, and thank you, David, for giving us that context, that historical context, and let's just be consistent with what we've been doing. I think to his point, it makes us. It's a good problem to have, Madam Chair. You got $4 million, 4.4, and so leave it where it is right now. To his point, overages, increased inflation of materials, but in the event that there is something, it's always the discretion of the board. That like, hey, we got this project needs a design, we need $1 million. It's always our discretion that we can take off of this. But right now, it's just excess, and so. But before I declare that, what's that thing? Madam Chair.
If you said say the, I want to certainly take advantage of the moment by looking at some potential projects that need to be completed through the county, but we'll hold off because I agree with Mr. Good. We'll hold off, but I was thinking about some additional lights and some sidewalks through the county since that additional $4 million has come through. That's all. Making some adjustments.
Okay. No, and you bring up a good point. And so now you go back to, all right, so where do you assign it? The $10 million that was advocated for out of SPLOST was advocated out of District 2. All right, so I'm taking my chair hat off, put on my District 2. Says, well, let's not stay in the district. Right, so then I'm like, well, at least be on Lee Road and I can share it up and down the corridor, District 3 or District 1. Right, it's like, so you want to keep it where it was originated from. Like you want to keep it within your area. But I get that there may be other needs, but that's what I'm saying. You don't want to make it too broad. Like it's just free money. We're just gonna put that. No. It's got to be intentional, man. That's hard to come by. Let's keep it on that Lee Road corridor, or put it back where the source of economic development was generated. But to just be free to put it over somewhat like District 4 for some lights or something. Like no, you got to fight for that. You got to advocate, and you just don't give it up after you don't fall for it. There's always a reuse in the current area. So for that, I hear that too. So I would say just leave it at now. If the board chooses to, I mean, obviously it's the will of the board, and ultimately, but the spirit of it is that, but that was, anybody could have advocated for the district. Anybody could have stood up, and said, hey, this was important. And this is the object lesson that I hope that the board will understand. Like, gosh, y'all gotta be intentional. And just see how this thing is being shaped over this past 5 years. Everything was purposeful. That economic development was intentional. Not everybody waking up, but I ain't gonna give up the marbles back because now all of a sudden, like, oh, that I know how to play jacks now. Oh, can I play now? You gotta put the work in. You gotta stand up in front of the citizens and advocate amongst your peers and put your stuff on the list and bring it to pass. But just spotting people, like, but wait a minute. And so I'm always sensitive to that, especially in that era, because it's like I advocated for it. And so that area is important. So to the citizens of District 2, like, well, Ms. Robinson, why did you give that up? Well, I didn't. We're just having a conversation. But to that point, now when you have free stuff that's independent, didn't have something that was assigned to it, then sure, I got no problem with that. But this one was purposeful. But duly noted, like I said, at the end of the day, it's always the board's decision. But again, Madam Chair, I do get it. There's other needs, but you got other stuff all over. But again, let's just have that problem. So I say leave it right there in the excess right now. And as the board as things come up, as y'all know, it may be like, oh, you know what, guys, let's go ahead and do that study out there to do a ramp on Ephesus or Post Road. I mean, if it's part of the arterial, like, well, okay, well, when we get ahead, at least we do design work for over to Chapel Hill, all the way over to Bright Star. I can buy that because that's the spirit of that whole sub arterial. Like that's well, who's pushing that? Like, where do you have the will of the board? Like, well, that's the number one priority. That's big money. So I can buy that, so long as it's just not spontaneously, just for the sake, as long as it's intentionally tied to a bigger picture. I really don't have a position per se, but just so that we can appreciate and respect how it was originated, and so as we make decisions that we can keep the spirit of it and say, well, anything along that corridor probably makes sense, right? Now all the way to District 4, all the way, but it's part of that sub-artery. That's what that's about. That's what that money was for. So, but all right, I'm good. So, Miguel, are you all right? I mean, it sounds like duly noted, but put it before the board tonight. There's no action that needs to be taken. You're just going to take it back into the excess and just let it sit like any other project, as Mr. Good said. And if there's a need in the future, we'll bring it for the board and let them make the call. I'm good. Miguel?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. There's no need for action on that component today.
All right. No, but duly noted because it's before the board tonight.
Yes.
We discussed it, we acknowledged it. We talked about the different aspects of how we would assign it in the future if there's a need to be. We do have to deal with inflation like we do with the overall general fund and things that are coming down that you got to make room for, hire materials. So duly noted, you got to finish the project. So, but right now, accept the money, put it in the bank and keep moving right now. All right, I'm good. All right, so if anything else, if that satisfies this discussion, if somebody else wants to weigh in, any other conversation?
Yeah, I see David Good has his hand up.
David?
Yes, Commissioner. One of the things that I remember that did happen during our SPLOS was when we decided there was no reason to do any work at the Anawake at 92. We took a portion of that money, put it towards the Lee Road widening, and then took another portion of that money and put it towards safety projects. So once we saw that there was a need for these safety projects, then the board made that decision. Let's take part of this money that's been dedicated for a project that was no longer viable. And that's what you guys did. So there have been times where you move money from one project in one district, such as the Post Road Bridge over Dog River that went to the Whitestone Culvert project. And same thing in District 2 when you guys took money that was going towards Anawake and then moved it towards Lee Road widening and towards the I-20 off ramps for the lighting, as well as safety projects within the district. So you guys have actually made decisions based upon needs in the county. Just wanted to say that.
No, I appreciate it. And that's duly noted. I'm still back to the point, but it was out of District 2 that was sacrificed to take it out and wake it.
Correct.
In the district. But I'm willing to share some of it. Remember, that whole point was good, but as long as it duly noted. right? But that was, and we said, okay, so how y'all gonna line this Riverside? So what we chose was to just put a light at the end of Riverside. The issue was still to fulfill that corridor, that congestion. Now, how are we gonna deal with that? And so that was a real trade-off. But again, one time, that was advocated on the list. The board didn't just make a decision randomly just based on, it was like, no, that was intentionally designed. And we chose like, okay, should we not? And once the decision was to let go that advocacy for Anawake, then it was free choice, right? Then it was like, okay, guys, well, what are we gonna do with this? We'll share some of this. You get my point? Or it's just duly noted. But again, it had to be a sacrifice. Well, wait a minute. And it was for operational, but that wasn't operational because of the track trying to make that left turn off at Anawake on the Fairburn. But duly noted, I don't want to belabor this, but thank you. And again, like I said, it's always the board's choice. But on this particular matter, it's like, yeah, but it's far and few to come by, and that's my point. It's easy for staff to say, hey, we just move up like that, but did you advocate for it? Did you advocate in front of the public? It's the difference. It's what it means to be elected. Like, no, you have to advocate and get stuff on the list. Now, I'm willing to acquiesce and play fair and work with everybody, but yet you have to agree to that, right? That's the conversation of the board. But it wasn't just this. It was just an option. We just moving stuff like because it's like it's for the greater good. And all I'm making a point like guys have to advocate and show that you care about your areas and that you're intentional. But yet you do share with amongst other people. You do work with other teams. Say, okay, right, put some operational, put some lights over this. But no, it wasn't just put lights. Remember the whole light bit. Thank you, I'm glad you brought it up. Don't just put lights over in District 4. No, back that up. Spread it out. Thank you for reminding me. Right, spread it out. And so I think duly noted, but let's not belabor this. I'm going to move on. Miguel, let's move on, please.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the Lee Road Phase 1 results of the RFQ for design. We went through the process, two-phase process, and the results are in. We are ready to move with administrative concurrence. We are ready to move on with the process of reporting to through the procurement process, the ranking, the three finalists on that were okay. We had Lowe Engineers as a finalist. We had Michael Baker as a finalist and Southeastern Engineering, with the top ranked finalist being Lowe Engineers. So we would be ready to then begin the process of negotiating a fee for design of that project. But I will need administrative concurrence from the committee to proceed with that effort.
And so first point of order. So the ranking was done by what was the structure of the people who ranked them? You don't have to tell me who, but how many members were associated with ranking?
It was a 3-member committee that reviewed all of the proposals, both phases 1 and 2,
okay.
And came up with the 3 finalists.
And what was, all right, so 3 finalists got it. How many proposals were submitted?
There were 7 proposals altogether.
All right, so I'm sure we had 3. We got 3 finalists. And so, I know technology is hard right now. So does the committee, the voting membership have the tallies? Do you have a tabulation of that?
I have a tabulation of it that I can share with the committee now.
Yes, can you share it with the committee, please? And so, I mean, you're sending it by email, or you're trying to pop it on the screen, or you're waiting?
I'm gonna pop it on the screen.
That's fine. All right. Madam Chair, you okay with popping it? Just for the record. Madam Chair?
Yes, I'm okay. Sitting and listening. Yes.
And then this will go over to the procurement committee to do what, Miguel, while you're doing that?
Well, at this point, it would not, the procurement director would post the results in the Georgia procurement repository, which is a requirement of the process. So they would post the 3 finalists on there. We would then, with authorization or concurrence from the committee, I would begin the process of negotiating a fee to design the Lee Road Phase 1 project. And so I would be.
For the record, it's always these different phases. This for the record, what is Phase 1?
Phase 1 would be the widening of Lee Road and South Sweetwater Road, essentially from Vulcan Drive to Veterans Memorial Highway, US 78.
Right, so this is in District 1 proper, give or take.
Right.
All right, got it. All right, so go ahead. I see your stuff thumbs on the screen.
Yeah, so you can see that the top ranked firm was Low Engineers, and then the second one was Michael Baker, and then the third one was Southeastern Engineering. So based on that, what we typically would do is begin negotiations with the top ranked firm and arrive at a fee, a reasonable fee for design of the project. And if that fails, then we will go to number 2 ranked and so on and so forth.
So what is the numerical ranking that you have there, please? Total for each one?
The total score for Low Engineers is 789. For Michael Baker is 767. And for Southeastern Engineering is 758.
So separation about 10 to 20 points. And total points total that they could have gotten?
Out of total points, they probably could have gotten around, I'm going to say around 1,100 points or something.
Right. Committee members, any thoughts? So again, at this point, you're going to go through the formal process. This will come when you go through the negotiations. So I guess that's going to go to the procurement committee. Is that correct? Are we releasing it from here, or are you trying to come back here? What's the?
No, we would be releasing it from here. I would request from the top ranked firm. I would request a proposal.
Yep.
With a design fee, and then based on what they submit, we would negotiate with them if it is reasonable, and then once we've established what we believe is a reasonable fee for the design, then we would come back to Transportation Committee with a proposal for awarding of a contract. So right now, what I need from the committee is administrative concurrence to begin the process of negotiating a fee for that project.
Right. So in negotiating this, the procurement officer will be involved at a minimum, correct?
The procurement officer is involved ultimately in the award of the contract. Yes.
I'm just trying to make sure we're, as we begin to evolve and reform our procurement process, is this a moment like, okay, so I know how we historically done it, but is there an intended change on the distant, like how, like in this moment, should it go over to that committee? Where is it going? I'm not suggesting it has to be, but like we've been having pretty open conversation today, but should it, just as the, okay, well, you've done this part, the technical part, maybe the sign off should happen over there. I'm okay, I'm not advocating for that, but I just want to make sure I understood it. So the point is, I'm fine with administrative concurrence as the normal process. David, good. Please weigh back in. So historically, how have we handled things? Again, the lead role was sort of a one-off to a certain extent, as not necessarily part of the overall spots, but yet we intermittently add to the list. What are your thoughts about where the process? This stays here, or what? What have you seen historically?
Well, historically, it really has been, once we looked at projects that started up and needed design engineering, it was a great process because you were able to have on-demand firms that could come in through a process and then be graded on certain things. So if you end up, the number 1 ranked firm, we end up getting the first project, then the next project coming in will be the second one, so it's fair. So I think that's really the balance. But as long as you get the best firm to do the work that has worked best when it comes to our SPLOST projects. So I've always been a fan of the ones, the one coming in and wins out on an RFP or RFQ or however that goes. I've been a fan of that on our larger projects. But when it comes to design engineering, this process works the best. But when it comes to overall, I believe it's the RFP process that's worked best when it comes to our SPLOST dollars.
I appreciate that. Madam Chair, did you hear that? I mean, I'm fine. I just want to weigh in because it is important. It's in another area. I know it's important to them, so I'm not belaboring it. But just as long as the process, we always sometimes get challenged on the process. Is it open? Do we see? How did the committees work? What was going on? I just wanted to, I'm making that a record, Madam Chair. Any thoughts?
I agree with you. I'm just listening.
Okay, all right.
And I think it's going well. I just
It's okay.
don't like to just be jabbering. I'm listening.
No, it's okay. I'm good with that. All right, fine. So,
And of course,
yeah, David.
I've always been a fan of anything that brings in local and brings in all types of participation, whether it's DBE, minority, local, chamber, or companies that actually just know how to do it. But as long as the collaboration is done and they equal out to what transportation needs, I think that's what's worked best when it comes to SPLOST. And we've tracked that since I've jumped on board. So I think that's where the positiveness comes from. You can do on demand for what works and then do RFP, RFQ for other things that's worked best when it comes to best practices.
No, thank you for that. All right, so McGill, are you okay? You need administrative concurrence on the current matter to move forward by authorizing the procurement officer to put it out there, right? To post it and move to your next step?
That's correct.
Right. Well, again, with the administrative concurrence, without a formal recommendation to the board, it's back to the executive administration. So I give administrative concurrence to the administration as stated. So Kelly Robinson gives administrative concurrence as stated. Madam Chair?
And I concur as stated.
Deputy, do you concur?
I concur as stated.
All right. Madam ACA,
I concur as stated.
Miguel, you get the final say?
I concur.
All right, so we got 5 concurrences. So we're going to move forward. Just keep going then. Well done. Thank you for bringing that forward. Thank you for letting it be public. Thank you for explaining the process, everybody's contribution to this conversation. All right, let's keep going.
Next item on the agenda is a change order proposal on the Maxim Road Sidewalk project. And what happened there is they ran into some rock excavation that was not anticipated. The proposal is, the additional cost is $71,415 for rock excavation, and that funding is still within the funding allocated to the project. So it would be, if it's the will of the committee to make a recommendation, this would have to be obviously taken to the full board for approval, but I would need a recommendation from the committee for approval of change order number 1.
All right, so this is the sidewalks down Max and down to the down the street over there by Cobb County, separating the line. How long? So how far along are they then? Are they?
They're about a third of the way through the process now.
It ain't a hit rock. Yeah, we live on the slopes of the hills. I get it. Madam Chair, I'm fine with this, so we can just keep this going. Miguel, make the motion. Let the full board weigh in on this. If it's within scope, within budget, it's properly scoped, then keep moving. So make the motion.
All right, I make a motion that the committee recommend to the full board to approve change order number 1 on the contract, the Maxim Road Sidewalk project contract with the Corbett Group in the amount of $71,415.
So move.
All right. I need a second. All right, I got a motion by Madam Chair, a second by Madam ACA. Any further discussion on this matter? All right, we'll go around the room. I'll call the question. All in favor or all against, say yea or nay. Kelly Robinson votes yes.
Ramona Jackson Jones, yes.
Deputy County Administrator, yes.
Tiffany Stewart Stanley, yes.
Miguel Valentine, yes.
Okay, for the public record, that was a 5-0 unanimous vote to send this to the full Board of Commissioners to do amendment to statement of work, amendment number 1 to the maximum road projects.
An amendment to that agreement, and I put together some verbiage that I can, upon concurrence by the committee, forward to our legal team to be able to vet it, and then over to the city for their action as well. Again, it would just require a time extension on that agreement.
Right. So to that point, either Madam Chair for being, representing the at-large, and Madam ACA intergovernmental, it's just time. It's not additional money. You said we can get started and stuff, but what does that mean? We out for a year? What's not being stated? What's the time impact?
I think the best course of action is to make sure we give ourselves enough time. We are going to need a permit from the state as well. I would say an extension through the end of 2023 would be advisable. It shouldn't take us that long, but rather than having to revisit the issue again, I would say extend it to the end of 2023 for full completion of the project.
All right, so it's supposed to be completed this year or?
Yeah, this year, by June of this year.
So, Madam Chair, look, we're off a year and a half on it. So do we know that? I mean, he just said time with us. He's just saying give us time and getting the board. What do you think, Madam Chair? I mean, I know that's an important intersection.
Yeah, it needs to be done. We've been waiting a long time, so everything just takes forever to get done, but that's okay. Let's do it.
So there's no way to accelerate it. So we're on it. We're doing the work, but again, it's just that you got to have permission. You got to have working relationships with other jurisdictions. So are they aware of this? Are they already aware of your counterparts over there, Miguel?
No, we will reach out to them based on this discussion today.
All right. So, Madam ACA or Deputy, are y'all either, have y'all talked? Well, obviously you haven't. So I guess you guys will make a phone call. I have no issue with this, Madam Chairman. Obviously, we got to put in record and keep it moving. So you're looking for administrative concurrence, right, Miguel?
Correct.
All right. So then I call for administrative concurrence for the matter associated with the Highway 5 Douglas Boulevard intersection time extension with the city of Douglasville for the staff to begin to have that broach that conversation with their counterparts. So I'm going around the room, and if y'all all agree, I, Kelly Robinson, concur.
Ramona Jackson Jones concur.
Frederick Perry, I concur.
Tiffany Stewart Stanley, I concur.
Miguel Valentine, I concur.
All right, so we got 5-0 concurrence. Move forward. Reach out to your counterparts. Madam Chair, you need to be aware of this. Obviously, this is important to make sure that all of our colleagues are aware of this major project. I know, David, it will probably come up at some future time, but because of the time sensitivity to this, look, we need to go ahead and broach it and get on their side, their permitting process. So, duly noted. Okay, Miguel. Next item.
Okay, next item, we are going to be needing an RFQ for right-of-way acquisition. Last time we went through the process, we had several, we had, I believe, 3 or 4 firms that initially proposed as part of the RFQ in 2020. And they went through phase 1 of that process, but when we requested phase 2 submittals, they didn't submit. So we ended up with only 2 firms qualified under that bucket, if you will, of consultants, on-demand consultants. One of those being Atlas at the time. And once a decision was made not to employ them for that, for something other than the project management, then that left us with 1 firm. We've used that firm on another project, and So we need to sort of replenish the roster, if you will. And so we are going to be seeking additional firms. So once we get through the process of procurement for right-of-way acquisition, I anticipate by next meeting in May, Transportation Committee meeting in May, to come back with some proposals for that, for consideration.
All right, so two things. So again, I'm going to go back to, I think we said we would only allow a firm to be on the list for 3 years, remind me that was the extent. And so we were replenished after that. So we're 2 years into something that we've done in 3 years. So is there a case why we would not go to Atlas if they're next up? Just go back. I mean, you're going up the list currently. They weren't prohibited. It was just one of those, that was the discretion of the board. It was not a policy position. So what do you, and if you're going to go out, do it for the whole thing versus just, because again, we don't want to have just an RFQ for this subsection of the on-demand. But that's not how we create the list. And I'm trying to be optimal. I want to make sure, like, okay, guys, if you're going to go out, go out. If you're going to go in, go all in. If you're going to ask what you need. And so I'm sensitive to the time. Listen to all these RFQs that's coming out of just us. Just this hour and a half conversation.
Yeah, understood, Commissioner. But
I
to
think
go out for the entire thing, we really need to do that later in the year because of the economy, the way it's playing out, and COVID and all the effects. It's going to be a different environment. So we need this now as opposed to, but we will have to go back out and redo the entire RFQ for the next round.
all right, so is there dissatisfaction with the current person, the current firm that delivered, and there was nothing that prohibited Atlas capacity to be able to deliver the next project? I need you to answer that. Is there any reason we cannot recycle back up that we feel as though we've got to replenish? The two can't handle what we currently got on the docket. It's just on demand, quick decision making, quick implementation. Am I missing something?
Yeah, at some point, the decision was made not to employ Atlas to do that work. And so it left us with one. And so we've utilized the one, and so we didn't have anybody else to go to.
All right, so Miguel, I don't think the point was to eliminate them from the list. They were qualified. It's no different that we chose to give more, it was Moreland at that time, the re-rating of the roads. Right? In other words, we know we can, as the highest governing authority at the local level, make decisions that says, no, we don't want to do it that way. As long as we have a public conversation, we're going to change it for this exception. But it wasn't to disqualify them from the list. Like we just chose, like, no, just go down the list. So they weren't supposed to be removed if they duly. The issue is that I'm going to leave it alone because I think what we're trying to say is that you removed them totally from the list.
No, they're still on the list. I mean, there's several ones that are on the list for other things as well. We just have not utilized them because that was the decision that was made at the time.
Right. So, yeah. So why do we need to move out on this group? To your point, if you got 2 or 3 people that's still in this section, you said just 2 people. Atlas is still there, and the current guys we just used there. Why wouldn't we just go back up to Atlas? That was just a one-time moment. It sounds like we're trying to apply that one-time decision and never use them. That's not what we did. It was just on that assignment.
If that's the case, I mean, if that's the will of the committee at this point, then we can go back and ask for a proposal from them.
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing wrong with what we had. I mean, the board did not knock them off. That means I'm absolutely clear we didn't take them out. It was just at that choice. That's when you had a new county administrator came in there, and we asked her in her what saith thee, and we chose as a committee to allow her to go to the next member. Remember, like yesterday. So I'm saying we didn't remove them. The board would have to remove them. We didn't have that authority in that meeting. But we could make the recommendation says, okay, based on this conditions and what happened, we recommend this to the board to be awarded, and that's how that went down. But I'm saying that no, if they're on the list, they're on the list. We can't just arbitrarily remove people from the list if they duly were qualified. Like, listen to what we're saying. No, leave that list alone. Madam Chair, I'm processing what I'm listening to, and I don't even want to innuendo or even imply not that it was intentional. No, leave the list alone now. It was the board's choice. We as a committee made a recommendation up to the board based on our own conditions. The board duly gave it, however they gave it to the next firm, fine. Right, so that means that just on that one, but that person is still on the list, but we can't just, it opens us up. It just sounds like a legal issue. Now, I don't want to talk about this no more. Just go down the list. What are we saying? Because you have no standing in which we would disqualify them from the list. We did not make a board decision. So I don't know if we need to go back out right now for this. And so I said, well, if you're gonna go out, to your point, wait till the end of the year, do the whole list at one time. I'm not just trying to create busy work. These RFQs are hard. They're slow to get out anyway. And we got enough. I'm not for going out on this one, Madam Chair. We can wait. You have somebody that's adequately prepared, perhaps, to sort of do it. So go down that path unless there was some type of a reason not to. That's where I'm at right now. So I say hold on this. So as chair of this, we're gonna hold on this one, Miguel. I haven't heard why we should move on this one.
Okay, we'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Stewart Mill and Reynolds intersection. We're ready to advertise for bids. We have received all of the necessary permits. And so we have the document ready for advertising. We anticipate that will happen probably now in May. And I would anticipate in June, I'll be back before the committee with a recommendation for award of that contract.
All right, so this is FYI.
Yes.
All right, sounds good. Any discussion, guys? I mean, it's just FYI. We don't have to belabor it. Sometimes he has to do things for the record, which I've always asked him, bring it up anyway. So.
No, it's good. We're moving full steam ahead, and also I believe our biggest hurdle for the certificate that we had to achieve or secure was the Corps of Engineers, right?
That's correct.
Okay, we're good. All right.
All right. Miguel, keep us going. Let's keep rolling.
Well, we got to the end of the agenda. That was it. That was
That's
the last
it.
item.
All right. So you said we had a Miss Cherry out there. Was she supposed to be added to the agenda or no? Oh,
She was not on the agenda, no.
Okay. All right. All right. So I'm sure y'all get back. Deputy, any comments before we close this out? I know we got to get on to the next meeting. So, Deputy, any comments from you, sir, before we close out this meeting?
No, sir, I'm fine, thank you.
All right. You're clear on all things that you got to make sure we get. You got it, right?
Absolutely.
All right. Madam ACA, are you okay?
Yes, I am. Thank you so much.
Miguel, you good?
I'm good.
All right. Madam Chair, last comment.
Thank you for the honor of the last word. Certainly, this was a good meeting as always. We have a lot going on transportation wise, and just so excited about the Lee Road project. Been getting a lot of phone calls or receiving a lot of phone calls from the constituents throughout the county, and they are definitely celebrating and said that that's a huge win for our county because that's been on the radar for at least over 10 years. Is that correct, Miguel? That project?
It's been well over 10 years. It's closer to 20 years from the initial inception.
You've had conversation an entire generation, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, anyway, the citizens, the ones that have contacted me and the ones that I see out in the community are just really excited about that project and what it's going to do for Douglas County going forward in terms of our infrastructure, connectivity, and our ability to move around more quickly and in a seamless manner. So thank you. That's all I have, Vice Chair.
All right. With that being said, Madam Chair, got closing word, guys. There's nothing else that needs to come before this Transportation Committee of April 19, 2022. This agenda has been satisfied. The meeting is adjourned. Thanks, guys.